English is very much our own language, and we need to understand the felt desire. Until and unless we feel the desire of learning language, we will not learn any language. Let's see, I'll give you another my example. I went to Kolkata and I lived there for 6 months. And I didn't learn Bengali at all because I was perfectly fine in communicating in English because I didn't feel the need. I also lived in South for more than 2 years, but again, I didn't feel that need of learning Tamil, and I was very comfortable in English in communication. So the bigger challenge is understanding the need. As Andy has also mentioned, the communicative English as well as academic English, something like that he has also mentioned. And I agree with his TPR process, which he mentioned. It's a very wonderful approach to carry with. And he also mentioned one very, very sensitive thing. He mentioned, Mr. Andy mentioned, that teachers should be treated as nurturers. And this is what I also agree, that teachers are not teachers, they are facilitators, they are mentors, they are guides, they are co-travelers. So we need to understand the need. Once we are understanding the need, then the idea of method to teach these students depends on the teaching practices employed by the teachers. So here, another question or another thing, very sensitive thing I think Andy has raised. So I thought I should also talk about that. So we should understand, we should know the types of teacher. And Dr. Kumar Vedivelu mentioned 3 distinct types of teachers. I'm not taking other example. I'm taking the example of Dr. Vedivelu. He talked about a passive technician, the first character, the first type of teacher. The second is a reflective practitioner. And the third one is a transformative intellectual. He categorized in 3 parts. And in other words of my adorable Dr. S. Mohanraj, these 3 parts, these 3 terms for teachers can be called as the artisan, the thinker, and the creator, respectively. Before we understand the trends and understand the behavior of teacher, because we need to understand the behavior of teacher, because this is the only thing which defines the pedagogy, which defines the sets to trends. So to understand, let's use 5 parameters. The first thing, what is the role of teacher in the classroom once we are going inside the room? So the question to be elicit the behavior is, what do I do? And the second thing, what is the source of knowledge of the teacher? Again, the question to be elicited is, where do I get the knowledge from? The source. And the third, the behavior, which should be categorized goals of teaching. Then again, the question should be, why do I teach? Just for the sake of salary? Means this is up to you all. I'm not going to go into the details of this. Then the 4th parameter is preparation for teaching. Then a teacher should understand, how do I teach? And the last parameters, which we all should implement, is stakeholders in the learning process. It means, who are my learners? And once we find our learners, once we find our audience, means if people allow me to say, so I will say that if we all focus on the last question, who are my learners? Then this is the crux of the whole story. Once you understand your learner, you will be able to make them learn anything. So one should know his or her audience before cater the text in the context of learners. Please, I'm going to repeat it. Please understand your audience or the learners and cater the text, whatever you are disseminating, in the context of the learner. Now, let me describe those 3 types of teachers. Then I believe you all will understand various challenges. Let me first talk about the passive technicians. who end up playing the role of conduit. That is, they convey the information from book to the learner. They depend heavily on the works of others. As you know, many people cite so many things and often repeat themselves year after year with the same material. I believe you all know all these things. They restrict their classes to long lectures without allowing for the interaction. And often they are considered experts, for they can transfer the information fairly effectively. The second type of teacher is the reflective practitioner, who act as facilitators, which we all talking, like Andy and I are talking about, the facilitators, and bring into play their own thinking based on the knowledge provided by the experts or the trainers. They interpret, the reflective practitioners interpret the books for the learners and help the learners to solve the problem. Their approach is often integrated, and they are considered expert in the field with a larger fan following. I believe Andy must have larger fan following. So it is their ability to interpret the concepts before transmitting to the learners that make them thinker. And the last category, the last type is transformative technicians, who work as change agents and bring into play their personal knowledge to the fore, which is based on research. Dr. Saha, he was trying to corroborate few research works in his classroom. I can give the examples, like you must have seen. Dr. Saha was trying to reveal some facts, some data assimilation and DBMS system. So who play their knowledge to the fore, which is based on research, and they help learners become aware of the concepts and their social relevance by problem solving and application strategies. I believe these descriptions which I gave obviously lead us to infer that transformative technicians are superior to reflective practitioners and who are themselves better than passive technicians. It may be worthwhile to reflect and retrospect and designate ourselves to one of them roles stated there. We need to decide who are we. As we all know that in cricket team, there are 11 players. Even in India, in world, there are many cricket teams. And I will talk about my Indian cricket team. But all 11 players are not equal in their competence. Few they can bat marvelously. Few can bowl really well. Few can field very well. One or two are all-rounder. So if I say there is only one Sachin Tendulkar, one Virat Kohli, one Jawahar Srinath, and now I'll come to the issue, the challenge. The challenge is people who can hold the bat, they all want to become Sachin and Virat. This is the problem. This is the issue. But the cognitive ability is different from each individual. I believe Virat cannot come equal to Sachin and Sachin cannot come equal to Virat. In the same way, the people, the learners who wish to bat well, they need to understand their cognitive ability. And this ability, I think, play a very important role in learning and teaching also. Because after understanding this ability, we understand the methods of teaching. However, most of the books provide a long list of language learning methods, such as grammar translation method, direct method, audiolingual method, lexical approach, and so many. But what are the things which we can use in trends? Again, I will go with Veduvelu, Dr. Kumara Veduvelu, who derived 3 types of methods: language-centered method, learner-centered method, and learning-centered method. And language-centered method are those where grammar and certain aspects of language take precedence over the actual language training. This we all know. The second is most interesting. The learner-centered methods shift the focus from structure to the language use and learner's need, which we all are talking about. The learners are given an opportunity to use the grammatical structures taught for communication in real life situations. And this is achieved by the designing suitable activities and tasks. We give mini tasks, role plays. I think Professor Ghosh was talking about the Damshirats and many other activities. And it is strongly believed that engagement with such tasks leads to mastering the language unconsciously. And I quote, language-centered methods aim at the making learners grammatically accurate and communicatively fluent, unquote. In order to this, the teacher should be familiar with the learners, which we have already discussed and taught. Now, the third part is a very interesting part, means more interesting than the second one, learning-centered method. This is what a solution and the trend to learn the language studies. These are principally concerned with the learning processes. They allow the learners to engage themselves in open-ended, meaningful interactions. Because as per the new education policy of our India, Education 4.0, everywhere we all are talking about the critical thinking, creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurial skill, cultural skill. All these skills are being assimilated in the form of language learning. And as I think Dr. Saha has talked about the bilingual approach also. So that has also mixed up in the new NEP, and that is the best approach for the same to understand, because all these things give me, few questions. If I say, and please, these questions are open-ended questions for you also. Please ponder over it and you can answer those questions. A teacher has two major roles to perform. The first, as a mediator of learning and a manager of teaching. So how can she balance these two acts? This is the challenge. Another question, a learner's understanding of the content is different from what he or she is given. How does the teacher ensure such mismatch is kept to minimize or maximize the learning possibilities? This is another challenge which I wish to mention. The third challenge, how can a teacher promote healthy interaction in the class, both among the peers and learners and the teachers? How do we handle questions and discussion in classroom? Because we can't ignore these questions in our classrooms. And another question which I wish to mention, why does language use vary from situation to situation? How do we sensitize our learners to this aspect? How to sensitize the learners to discourse feature of languages? And the last question which I wish to mention as a challenge is how to make the learners aware of the cultural moorings of the language being learned. So if I look at all these challenges, the only solution is bilingual approach, or let our student, let our learner speak in any tongue. We should not pressurize that if you are going to speak in English, you should think in English. No, the cognitive skills are different. We can use the process of translanguaging and translating from mother tongue to other tongue is the best solution to face these kind of challenges. And obviously this pandemic has given us ample of ICT tools. Although I'm using, many of you know that I'm using ICT tools since more than 15 years in my classroom. But new tools which I wish to mention which are very interactive tools like Kahoot, Menti.com, Quizzes, Readworks.org, WhatsApp, and many other Google Classrooms. So at last, just to say that you all need to kiss the frog. First, identify the frog, kiss that frog, and while understanding that frog, be sensitive, know yourself, be creative, Let's see, let me ask another question. If your back is itching, what will you do? So these kind of means this is not creative question at all, but I'm giving you a kind of like any kind of creativity should be included in your classroom, by which our students can easily understand and they can easily learn the language. And once you know the language, know as many as rules possible. This is for teachers, and you should know the content also because it changes from time to time. So ultimately, the last thing from my side, identify the frog and kiss that frog. Thank you, everyone.